Check the mic and make sure it sound right, boys.
What up, Nicole Juergens?
Hello, Michael Moore. Welcome to all of our viewers. This is Highly Uncircumcised.
Wait a minute. What did you just call me?
Highly Uncircumcised.
No, not the show. What did you call me?
Called you Michael Moore, and I said welcome to all of our viewers. Oh, sorry. Hello, Superman. Welcome to Highly Uncircumcised.
Well, hello. It's good to be here. My buddy said this is a good place to be, so I decided to come. My buddy, Michael Moore.
Last week, we were going to talk about Chappelle, and then we did, but then your computer farted out, and it's a terrible episode, so we're not going to post it.
With all due respect to my computer, it was actually my internet service provider, Spectrum.
Get it right. Spectrum, piece of trash. So we had a nice episode for you on Chappelle.
It was a nice episode.
It was a nice good episode.
A lot of preparation went into that episode.
You did a really good job. You want to give them the Cliff's Notes? Basically, like all
people are stupid.
Yes, all the hoopla is ridiculous. Chappelle's just fine.
It's stupid.
There you go. You got the Cliff's Notes. Today, though, we want to talk about
Did you just have a stroke or
maybe did they vaccinate me? I might have blood clot.
911.
We want to talk about I guess we'll base it around the show Dopesick, right? I mean, or do we want to just talk about
the show
opioid,
is based on real life happening. So I guess what we're really talking about is the opioid crisis and how it started and where it's at and who's to blame.
Because you have to blame somebody. That's
why
very
people
important.
get away with everything.
What?
Yeah, we're gonna have to go.
You've been listening to too much of the news again. Stop it. You got to stop it. So listen.
Yeah, the opioid epidemic is a health crisis.
All of our viewers, number one suggestion, go and watch Dopesick. It's on Hulu. You can get Hulu for free. I don't know. I have it free with my Spotify. Maybe it's even free if you just have commercials. I'm not sure how it all works, but I would definitely recommend it. We then also, both of us watched, what's it called? The Crime of the Century?
The Crime of the Century.
It's a documentary on HBO, which then is a further look into the same story, the opioid epidemic and how it started. And basically it started with one family, the Sacklers, who are, a massive legal drug maker in the United States. And they created this drug in order to, their patent was running out on opioids that they use in surgery. And so they wanted a way to make a pill that could be mass produced and mass used outside of surgery for pain. And so I
don't know that it was surgery. I thought it was for cancer related pain
in the hospital.
They needed something looser, so that they could sell more. So the drug, to sort of dovetail on what you said, the drug itself was legally made and highly illegally marketed and actually put on the market. They actually paid off people in the FDA to create a label for what we know as OxyContin, creating a label, basically dumbing down its impact on a human being once taken. And they did that under the guise of creating this patented seal around every pill that's supposed to basically delay the amount of the drug that goes into your system when you take it. So therefore, like, theoretically, if this really worked, which they knew at the time it didn't work, but anyway, if it worked, it would have delayed the drug going into your system, so you're not getting like an instant high the way you would doing, cocaine or heroin or something like that you just, take into the bloodstream or whatever. So they marketed this drug as a cure-all to all pain and suffering. And what it really was just legal heroin, essentially.
It was basically, it's based, any of these are drugs that are on the street and drugs that are from your doctor's. They're all drugs. But what's interesting is they didn't only, so they had, was it MS Cotton or something, which was the one they used in the hospital, right? M-Contin, and their patent was running out on that, right? And so when your patent runs out, that means now all your competitors can make what do they call it when you can make the same
generic
drug
version.
Generics, right? And you lose massive amounts of money, right, when your patent expires. And so this is why they decided to come up with an idea of how to have a new drug. But what is really fascinating, and why you've watched this show and see, is they didn't really try to find a drug to solve a problem. They literally tried to create a problem to make a drug for. They literally went out and when you're in a hospital now, you and I are, and I've been in the hospital twice in my adult life, and that's for 2 C-sections for my 2 children. They will ask you every day, what's your pain level? They'll give you a chart, even with a picture on it of a face that's smiling or a face that's sad, and they'll ask you your pain level in 1 to 10. I did not know that the Sacklers started this. They started this. It used to be, your levels of health, pain wasn't even an option or a question at a hospital. They created a need for a drug before they made the drug. They created the environment that said, oh yes, we do need that drug. They changed the entire system. They went to doctors and told them about how pain matters, how so pain is being underserved. So many people are in pain and it's not fair to them. They literally had an education campaign. I would call it a propaganda campaign, because it's simply serving their purposes, not really serving the health of a society. And they went around and did this to hospitals, and they reinvented the entire hospital system and how you treat patients. So even in the beginning, doctors, when they brought to them this drug, it's a narcotic, which is highly, highly addictive. Doctors like, no, I can't give narcotics to my patients for pain at home, for long-term pain at home. And they sold them a whole bill of goods and studies that actually weren't done, or studies that referred to one line in one book that was 23 years ago. And what is super fascinating about all that, I mean, first of all, it's gross, but what's super fascinating to me is it looks exactly the same with COVID. It looks exactly the same.
It's the same.
All of it. The way they created.
You have to correlate that for me. You just lost me, but go ahead.
It's the way the entire FDA, the CDC, the government, all of them are working together in order to not so much serve the people as serve their purpose, which is to sell vaccinations. And of course we can go into this forever, but this is more about the opioids. But to me, I see a huge correlation between so many things that they did in this, creation of this drug. The Sacklers did, who, by the way, eventually got taken. We haven't gotten that far in the show yet, but eventually got taken to jail, and I assume shut down.
No. Not one person went to jail.
They didn't go to jail. Nobody did.
That's why, and I was dead serious when I say what white people can get away with, because there are Black men sitting in jail right now for 20 and 30 years on marijuana charges.
Right.
And not one of the Sacklers went to prison, and they kept most of their money, and all they paid was a $5 billion fine.
And which sounds a lot, but they made like billions.
Hasn't been paid because the company's been in bankruptcy and probably will not get paid. So that for me is far more profound than the correlation between COVID and this, because really the real correlation is just greed. That's all it is.
Well, that's exactly it. It's 100% it. That's if you're gonna do one word to describe all of the systems, whether it's the opioid or the COVID or any system where at the top things aren't making sense, but a lot of people are making money. It's greed. It's somebody is finagling the system to work out in their favor for greed. And that's what this company did. They created this entire demand for a product that wasn't even there, and it's a harmful product, and it hurt people. I was just looking at actually, here, I'll share this. So I was just looking at this, and this is our drugabuse.gov, and this is opioid overdoses, and only until 2019. They don't even have 2020 on here yet. I'm not sure why, probably because they don't want to show it with COVID, because I'm sure it's probably not good. But
well, they acknowledged that in the documentary, actually, that in 2020 the opioid overdoses increased massively in 2020. So that's not like a hidden fact. There's probably
why isn't it on here? I mean, this is drugabuse.gov. Again, this is what I'm saying. All of this stuff is interrelated in so many ways, and it leaves me with a lot of questions for our leading health institutions, and leaves me with a lot of mistrust of all of them, honestly. But so these are the numbers of specifically opioid overdoses every year. Now, the thing that's interesting about those numbers, and you can go on and check it yourself, is that, also, those are ones that, where they specifically overdose from opioids, but it doesn't talk about other people who moved on to other drugs and died from that, or how the ramifications of the entire families and things that are torn apart. When you watch the show, you see how, families are torn apart with these people who weren't maybe even ever drug addicts, doctors, and people who had never had any issues in their life, but now we're told, yeah, this is what you take, and then you take it and they end up lives ruined, right? It's fascinating. And so you watched both episodes of the HBO documentary, which went more in depth on this. I fell asleep during the second one, but I thought it was really interesting to see the real Richard Sackler, who's the main guy who developed Oxycontin, and to see him and see how the actor does a really good job of capturing who he is, I think, in Dopesick. Like I was like, wow, it really does seem like him. He doesn't really look like him, but the way his mannerisms really seem like him. And he's just a guy that some people would say, like, I don't know, would you say he's evil? I feel like a lot of people would say that. I wouldn't say evil. I would say he's just like massively addicted to power, right? And this is how he gets it, by creating this huge drug, bigger than anyone's ever made, more successful than anyone's ever done. And he did it.
Yeah, he's definitely evil. And I would say that his addiction was not actually to power, it was to money, because his entire motivation was selling so that they have more and more and more revenue. But again, none of them were held accountable in any way, shape, or form.
I'll have to go back and watch the second one. And for those who want to watch Dopesick, it's not over. The season's not over. So one comes out every week. So
Dopesick is as you know, just a drama based on the actual happenings. If you really want to learn about it outside of like reading, I mean, I Googled all this stuff, but watching that HBO documentary is really gonna teach you. Dopesick, again, that's just, it's good, it's entertainment, and it seems fairly accurate, but I would say watch the HBO documentary, or at the very least just Google the story, and it's pretty profound. These people had congressmen and senators in their pockets, and whole entities of the government, the FDA.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think there's correlations there too, just revolving doors between one guy in the FDA making recommendations for the certain drugs, and then later coming and working for the same company that he made there's clear conflicts of interest happening constantly, and the fact that it's allowed just enables more and more mistrust, especially when you can see the results of it. The fact that Oxycontin is still even used boggles my mind. I'm really surprised, after knowing all this, how we still prescribe
why Oxycontin is still being used?
No, why?
Because when the government ruled that, or when the court system ruled against Purdue, which is the actual company that produces OxyContin, when they ruled against them and they laid out that judgment of it's $8 billion, actually, it's $8 billion. They were petitioned by the company to be allowed to continue to make OxyContin to pay for the judgment. So
and
they are literally,
And we let them. We're like, oh yeah, sure, just keep killing people.
Well, I
like,
don't know what we did. The court system allowed them to keep producing OxyContin that helped to allow them to be able to pay for the judgment that the court imposed upon them, which again is absolutely ludicrous, because what you're saying is go ahead and pay your debt using the stuff that caused you to have this debt and judgment in the first place.
Go ahead and pay your debt, producing the pills that are killing people at a massive rate so that you can pay off your debt for killing people at a massive rate. What the fuck? Like that's what I mean. And we don't realize that these are the same people that are telling us what we need to do to be healthy, how we need to be healthy, what is healthy, what you can and can't say, right? And those are the same people. And if we don't listen to them, if we have another thought or idea about what health is or what is right for our bodies other than what they say, then we're the ones who are crazy. And I just, for the life of me, I can't fathom all of this.
I actually don't feel OxyContin in and of itself is the problem, because I mean, it is an effective tool for what it was designed for, which is to decrease pain. The problem, in the same way that morphine or Vicodin or Tylenol, for that matter, are designed to decrease pain, right? The problem, in my estimation, is obviously the greed, because the greed is at the root of all of it. But it's the unscrupulous doctors that were willing to write just prescription after prescription after prescription, knowing that they were creating an environment in which people were becoming addicted. I had surgery on my leg one time, and it was a tremendous amount of pain for me. And they were giving me like Tylenol or whatever in the hospital. And then I graduated to Vicodin, which helped out just a little bit. I almost can't feel Vicodin. I've had to take it a few times, and it really doesn't, my body doesn't react to Vicodin. So they ended up giving me morphine, which for me was like, it just made me want to just like lay out. I mean, I was just done. As soon as that stuff would hit me, it would absolutely take away the pain, but it would absolutely take away my ability to actually function normally. And thankfully, I only needed it while I was in the hospital. It wasn't something that I needed when I left the hospital. But my point simply is that if you had doctors that actually cared more for their patients than the junkets they would take them on, and the ski trips and the Caribbean and the money that they would make, per prescription and all that, then that opioid crisis that still exists today wouldn't be nearly as bad as it's been. So
of course, on all levels.
They knew, the doctors knew when Purdue salespeople were marketing this drug to them, they knew what the ramifications of taking opioids, narcotics, was going to be with their patients. And they literally let salespeople who have no medical background, who have no degree in any sort of medical science in any way, shape, or form, explain to them that this magical coating on each pill was the savior, and this is why your patients won't get addicted. So instead of doing like actual research and trying to find data and so forth and so on, they just let the salespeople say, hey, it's safe, and would you like this trip to Vail, Colorado for the ski trip at the end of the year? So it's as dirty as I believe Purdue and specifically the Sackler family was and is, and the salespeople, because the salespeople knew what they were doing as well. I think really you have to put the lion's share of the responsibility on the dirty doctors, to me.
I don't know if I put the lion's share, but 100% the share, 100%. And I think, again, making correlations to everything you see in life right now too is a lot of people are like, oh, well, listen to your doctor, talk to your doctor. Well, you don't realize the extent that your own doctor may or may not be doing their own research, like you were saying here. And that's the issue, right? There are some very good doctors who probably never will prescribe narcotics because of that, because they're worried about that, and or at least have a very good discussion with you about it, as they should. But then there are other doctors who are literally just, when the edict comes in, like, oh yeah, this is a new drug, this is what we use, here you go, and they just do it. And I don't want to say that they're all evil or they're all knowingly doing it, but some of them just think about as much as the rest of us, which is not much. And so when I hear people, oh, well, just talk to your doctor, like, of course I do. I review what many different doctors have said about different things. And a lot of these same doctors their thoughts on what you should or shouldn't do for a certain treatment are different, just like me and you's opinion about things, right? So I think when you look at all of this, you begin to realize that it's so important that you advocate for yourself, that you're asking questions. We've gotten to this point in life where we've become very comfortable and it's very easy. We have all this access to information and we have these experts who we trust and that they're meant to lead us in the right way. And so we haven't had to. So we're just like, okay, I'll just ask my doctor and then I'll go do it and blah, blah, blah. But I think we've become at a breaking point where I think we have to realize that no matter how great everybody is around you, you still have to think a little bit. You still have to do some of your own research. You still have to try for your own. So you can't just expect everybody else to do everything for you, because doctors are humans too.
Well, I agree with you to an extent, but you have to put yourself in the position of someone who's going into a doctor's office and they've had a major back injury or something like that. And the doctor prescribes this drug and tells you that it's not addictive and it's completely safe. And then it actually does take the pain away from you. I don't put the onus on the patient in those situations, because the patient doesn't really, in my opinion, need to research pain medications. Like your doctor should have enough knowledge of various pain medications to be able to prescribe something safely for you that's not going to have you robbing your neighbors and selling your body for money to get more at some point.
And that's not an exaggeration.
No, that's not. That's
narcotics.
literally the kind of stuff that was happening. I mean, doctors themselves were becoming addicted to this stuff. I can't, in that situation, in my mind, resolve putting the responsibility on the patients, because again, you have pain and you know that you need to take something to relieve the pain, right? So it's not a matter of like going to the gym or eating better or something like that, right? It's literally like, I need to take something to alleviate this pain while my body heals itself, or whatever the case may be. So in those specific situations, I think it's fine that lay people put trust in people who have medical degrees and take oaths that say we will do no harm.
Except that you saw clearly that except for that you saw clearly, right, through these documentaries that some the oaths don't apply for them, right? Some are still prescribed. That's what I'm saying, is like, we have to, as a society. But I'm
saying you don't know that your doctor is someone who's in the pocket of the pharmaceutical company and is willing to. It's really a gamble in that situation. You just have to hope and trust that you actually have a doctor that has some integrity, because I mean, they literally had what they called pill mills where doctors would have little strip mall shops that would have lines around the block, at 8 a.m. when they opened, of people coming in basically saying, I have a toothache. Okay, well, here's a prescription for 40 milligram Oxycontin.
You need some Oxy.
And it literally could be that. It was such a nuanced endeavor for this pharmaceutical company, because they would have their There are salespeople pretending to actually be doctors, calling insurance companies, giving them the right buzzwords to get the approval for the patient, to get all these
salespeople would be coercing the doctors and saying, if you don't use this pain med, we're going to have you shut down. I mean, it was this company created this entire environment little by little until to the point where in the hospital now, this just becomes normal. And this is what I mean about reality, is that it can shift on you little by little to the point where you're like, oh yeah, this is just what we do. This is what we do. And that's why we have to question along the way before we end up in a society that like, no, I don't want this society where this is what we do. Like you could see like how they built it. I mean, it was almost genius level, right? I mean, this guy, he probably is a genius, right? I'm not saying he's definitely an evil genius, but he's a genius. The way he developed, he developed an entire world for his product, in which he could make billions of dollars from. He's no different. He's literally no different than an illegal drug dealer. No different. And even you saw that in the documentary, right? They compared it to how actually illegal drug dealers, how business minded they actually are. How they get salespeople, they actually give free stuff to a market. That they talked about this in the first episode of what's it called again? The HBO one?
Crime of the Century.
Yeah, and how actually, illegal drug dealers are actually probably evil geniuses themselves, right? Very business-wise smart. You have to be in order to make billions of dollars like that. These Sacklers are the same people. The same. He created this entire market for a product he hadn't even made yet. He created it before he even made it. Then he made it, and then he sold it. And then as he ran into problems, he redefined how to handle the problem. I mean, an entire systems, our entire hospital system, he manipulated all of it. It's pretty fascinating. And the fact that they can still use narcotics, they can still use that narcotic, like, it's just like, what? And that just goes to show you how untrustful, for me at least, any of these health organizations are. The fact that you can still use oxy, oh yeah, you can still produce it. Like, what the fuck are we doing?
Well, the thing is, I mean, oxy is not even the strongest of the narcotics, the legal narcotics out there right now. I mean, fentanyl is literally 50 times stronger than OxyContin, and fentanyl has been around for 80 years.
Well, fentanyl is what everyone's dying from on the streets.
Right, but I mean, OxyContin was sort of the beginning step for people who got into fentanyl.
Fentanyl is legal, but you can't get it. Like, you can't get a subscription.
It's legal in the same way that OxyContin is legal, if you get it the right way, right? I mean, but you can also get OxyContin through the black market on the street. So it's yes, there is a legal venue for fentanyl, but most of the time it's gotten illegally.
I have a friend whose boyfriend is a fire captain, and firefighters now, the vast majority of their job is basically as EMTs, as they're going to health services more than anything now. And he said a lot of fentanyl overdoses, a lot. And we're in LA, and he's in a not a great part of town, but he sees weekly, sometimes daily, fentanyl overdoses. That's how pervasive it is. And again, if I want to look at it like as our COVID pandemic, right? Again, I want to point out how we think about what we're told to think about is, nobody even knows really about the massive overdoses of fentanyl, people dying constantly on the street in our own neighborhood, the numbers of people dying all the time from these drugs. Nobody knows or cares. But if we blasted it every day like we do COVID, my God,
I don't know
right?
about that. I would disagree with that. Most people are hip to, the opioid crisis now. I was talking about the opioid crisis 3 or 4 years ago with people on Facebook and just friends and stuff like that, because especially, again, Black people, we were just like, this is amazing that opioids are a health crisis and crack epidemic was a criminal issue. There was a guy at the end in this documentary that I watched yesterday. He was in Texas. He was like the largest distributor of fentanyl down there, and he was also an addict. And people died directly as a result of him selling fentanyl. In fact, that's how they caught up with him, because of this young girl that died. She was like 16. Long story short, they caught up with this dude and ended up, getting him convicted of whatever, all these drug charges and so forth and so on. He got 12 years in prison. Again, there are literally Blacks in prison that are doing life
this guy's white. This guy's white.
Of course. They're literally Black men in jail right now, and it's not rare. It's actually not rare at all, doing life sentences for a drug that is now legal in almost every state for recreational use, not even just medical use, for recreational use. Honestly, for me, that's far more impactful or profound than any other aspect of this opioid thing. For me, that's what I think about most. Is I cannot believe, starting from the top, the Sacklers, not one of them got any jail time, were never convicted of anything. In fact, I don't think they were tried criminally of anything. It was all basically civil. That's how they ended up paying the fine. But more than that, when I look at a guy like the guy who they convicted of being essentially one of the largest fentanyl traffickers in Texas, of all places, right? Because in Texas, I mean, they would probably just hang one of my people up from a tree. They gave this dude 12 years, and he'll probably be done in somewhere around 7 or 8 years. People literally directly died, right? So it's not he distributed the drugs and then some dealers were dealing it and then people died as a result of dealers dealing the drugs. No, he literally was dealing drugs to people, and people died overdosing on the drug that he illegally stole them and illegally procured. And he got 12 years in prison. He'll be out of prison by the time like his oldest child is ready to go to college. I was mortified. That's honestly all that I could think about with regards to any of this. I'm just like, this is such bullshit how this country, how there's different Americas for different people. Because I know for sure that if that was me, they would put me under the jail.
Well, as you are right, no, they wouldn't.
Yeah,
I think there's a lot more has to do with, to me, I see it as class rather than race.
No. It has nothing to do with class.
Yeah,
no. I would say nothing at all, because this guy was poor by any standard. So it wasn't even like he was wealthy. He was just some poor white dude in Texas that got hooked on fentanyl himself because of an accident that he had. And to actually support his own habit, that's why he started selling fentanyl and ended up becoming, again, one of the largest distributors. To me, it's all race. It's again, why, you just tell me, and then I'll decide how to process the information. You just tell me why the opioid crisis is now officially a health epidemic, and the crack epidemic in the 80s was a criminal scenario by which there are so many people sitting in prison right now that will never get out based on crack use, sales, right? Distributorship, all of that. But if you are white and you are doing opioids, if you get caught, the first response is to give you rehab.
Well, I think the reason why I say class, and don't get me wrong, obviously there's massive injustice in this. The fact that anybody is still in jail for pot, I mean, that should have been an edict. Like, it should have been over. Once it's legal, that's it. These guys are out of jail. You had one joint and you're in jail for that, fucking out. Like that, no like disagreement with that at all. And that's just another way our system is so fucked. But why I say class is because it seems to me the way they develop the court system is that as long as you have enough money to have a good lawyer, you have much better chances, right? And so if these are poor Black men who got caught with a weed, but they have no money, no nothing, they're just at the whim of some stupid fucking judge who will, whether it's racism or whatever else, throw the book at them, right? So I don't deny.
With money and go through the system, you're still facing the same harshness that you would as someone who's poor. You may get somewhat better outcome because you have better representation, but I mean, all you need to do, Nichoel, is just Google the disparity in time that you're given per charge based on race. I mean, these statistics are super easy to get, and
I'm sure it's true,
Blacks,
because
Latinos, anyone not
or aren't jails, like the percentage of Black, Latino, whatever, aren't they posted somewhere? I mean, can't you see jails are
you can get all this information, I mean, anywhere. This stuff is very easy to find because it's published by the government. And the fact, again, and this is all just the sort of disgusting system, is the prisons being privatized. There's actually a fiduciary motivation for filling up the prisons, and who are they filling up the prisons with? And do you realize that most prisons, and this includes the white population as well that are prisoners, most prisons are somewhere between like 90 and 95% filled with drug offenses. That means either being caught with drugs, using drugs, selling drugs, some phase of the drug game process. So basically, like somewhere between 5 and 10% of your prisons are like murderers, rapists, robbers, you know, whatever. So if they actually let the people out, right, and treated them the way they were treating these opioid addicts, the prison industrial complex would crumble. But again, like we talked about weeks and weeks ago, do you realize how many jobs would be lost if they actually did the right thing and let the people out who are serving, again, 20, 30 life sentences based on the same exact crimes that are being committed daily by our white brothers and sisters who are not getting any real responsibility being attributed to them. I'm honestly, Nichoel, I'm disgusted by the whole thing. Watching the documentary and watching Dopesick, if I'm being honest, half the time I'm thinking to myself, you know what, the one thing you almost never see in any one of these episodes of Dopesick or almost any of that documentary was Black people. Everyone in these shows is white. Who's going to jail? That's what I want to know. I'm looking at them like, who the hell's getting picked off here? There's no one to put anyone in jail here. This is amazing.
It is amazing, but again, like I always say about everything, there are rich people at the top running the show for everything. What I found fascinating about this is that you can actually see it. You can see the real story in one little segment. This guy literally created his own world. He manipulated everything in the entire world in order to bring him to the top of his little world with all the power and the money. You saw in this story, right? And of course he didn't go fucking jail, because when you have billions of dollars, you don't fucking go to jail. You don't. But why I think it's so fascinating, because it's
Bill Cosby.
He's out, right? Bill Cosby's out, and he doesn't have billions, but he has millions.
He's a billionaire.
And that correlates to everything else in life that we don't realize. Like, what I find fascinating is that we got to see the whole story unfold here, right? You know, whether it's fictionalized or the documentary, whatever. But that's what happens in every system in life. Like you're saying, in prisons, there could probably be a great documentary about how the person, there's somebody at the top running that whole show, created that whole system, found a way, put Black people in because they can't fight, they don't have the money, whatever. That's the thing that our whole lives we don't realize, and is that there are people running the show and telling us what we got to do and how we got to live, and we never realized it before because we weren't affected before. We're starting to become more and more affected.
You're making the argument that the issue is money, and it's not money. I'm saying to you that the issue is not money, the issue is race. And that makes it a lot deeper. Especially for someone like me, again, because I don't think it has anything to do with money, because if the Sacklers were Black, someo's going to jail.
I know. You think if the Sackler was Black, I don't think so at all.
100%. if one of the guys, and especially Richard, who was sort of, we know, at the apex of the whole thing.
OJ didn't go to jail. These guys who have enough money and good lawyers don't go to jail. They don't.
OJ didn't go to jail for more than he didn't have money. OJ had a favorable jury that had mostly Black people on it that, in my mind, in my opinion, were willing to basically say F you to the system, because Rodney King had happened a year or two prior to that. The riots had happened. You're not looking at it as detailed as you should. It's not nearly as simple as OJ had money. Yes, I agree. A big reason why OJ was able to get off is because OJ was able to afford a team of lawyers that most anybody couldn't have afforded. But his getting off, in my mind, was more to do with the fact that the Black people on the jury decided, we're not going to convict this man.
Maybe, but then you brought up Cosby.
Because if I was on the jury and I heard if I was on, because I watched that whole trial. I was 17 years old.
Everybody watched that stupid trial.
If I was on that jury at that time, 100% I would have been one of the Black people that was like, no, he's not guilty. Nah, Mark Furman is absolutely a dirty cop. He planted the evidence. Well, guess what? That's me at 18 or 19 years old seeing that trial. Today at 44, knowing everything that I know about that trial. And if OJ didn't actually do it, he certainly was responsible for it, and physically at least there, present while it happened. If he didn't actually do the slicing and dicing, I would convict him in a heartbeat.
Slicing and dicing.
Yeah, I would convict him in a heartbeat today. But I'm just being honest with you. How many years ago is that? 25 years ago now when that trial took place? If I was on that jury, I'm definitely one of the people that's saying no.
Okay, so how about Cosby? I mean, Cosby, if he was just
Cosby is
some
100%
poor
guilty.
Person, he would. Well, he would, but he's out now.
He's out because of a technicality. You have to read why he's out.
He's out because he's a rich man. Guilty. He's a rich man.
No, he's out because the prosecution essentially brought charges against him that they were not supposed to bring against him, because they promised him legally that when he gave his deposition, and they literally gave him immunity from the things that he was saying in his deposition. Then a new DA was elected in whatever that was, Philadelphia or something like that, and that person decided, we're going to try Bill Cosby.
It doesn't matter though. If Bill Cosby didn't have money, if Bill Cosby didn't have money, he doesn't matter what kind of many mistakes they made.
Well, he had lawyers that were able to continue to fight and say, hey, this was wrong. But my point is simply, it's not literally because he's a rich man that he was out. He really is out for a legitimate reason, even though I believe him to be 100% guilty.
Okay, well, think about this. Think about how many legitimate reasons for poor Black men that are in jail that should be out, but they're not going to get out
100%
because they don't have money. But I'm not
100%.
denying that race doesn't have something to do with it.
No,
but you also have to
do with it. That's my point. It's the lion's share of what it has to do with.
I don't know about the lion's share. I won't jump on the lion's share.
Let me just ask you. Give me a direct answer. If the opioid crisis was affecting Black people the way it affects white people, do you think that America would call it a health crisis and not be putting them in jail?
If Sackler is still white, but
I'm not talking about Sackler.
I'm trying to get clear on your question.
Who actually, people who
I'm trying to get clear on
the drugs.
Yeah. So if Sackler is still white, but the people that used his drug were Black, would he go to jail? Is that what you were saying?
No, I'm not talking. That's what I'm trying to tell you. I'm not talking about Sackler. I'm talking about the people who get the prescriptions and go get high. I'm asking you, if you or I who have an OxyContin prescription go and illegally get OxyContin and get high and stay high and get arrested for whatever we get arrested for, I'm asking you if the majority of them, like 90-something% of the people who are affected by the opioid crisis are white. I'm telling you, if you flip that and 90% of the people who are affected were Black, are you telling me that it would be handled the same exact way? That's my question.
I honestly don't know how it's handled. Like, are they putting these people in jail?
They don't go to jail. They go to rehab. They don't go, they literally don't go to jail. It's treated as a health problem. It's something that you can't control. It's like diabetes or cancer or something like that. Literally, it's like that. So therefore, they're not putting you in jail for having cancer. I'm asking you, do you think that if it was affecting Black people the way it affects white people, do you think that the system would treat the people the same?
I honestly don't know. I think that the problem is
that's the privilege that you have. That's the privilege on display.
Okay.
Because I know for sure that Blacks would literally be getting amounts of time in prison that would have them sitting there until they're either old or dead. And you know how I know that? Because they were willing to put people in prison again for life for marijuana, which they made legal. Cocaine will never be legal in America. Heroin will never be legal in America. None of these drugs that we consider ecstasy, right, will never be legal in America. Weed is legal in America because it was so, everyone knew, even the powers that be knew that it was so ridiculous to have this drug that they could be taxing, which nobody in the history of marijuana has ever overdosed on marijuana, right? Nobody. There's not one human being in the history of marijuana that died using marijuana. Now, they might have died because they did something stupid, but they didn't die from marijuana use. Where we have all these people literally just dying from using OxyContin, right? I don't have to go out and do anything stupid or illegal. I just take them, sit back in my house, and I'm dead if I do the wrong dosage. I'm telling you right now that if this crisis, and I just have to stay on it, if this crisis was affecting Blacks the way it affects whites in terms of our usage percentage, it'll be looked at a whole different way. I honestly couldn't care less about the Sacklers. I think they're pieces of shit. I think they're awful humans. They're the kind of people that I actually pray that there is an afterlife, and that afterlife involves a heaven or hell. And I won't say which one I think they should be in. Well, but I will tell you right now that my issue is with the U.S. government. It's not with Purdue Pharma. It's not with the Sacklers. It's with the U.S. government.
With the system, yes. And again, I don't know what would happen if it didn't originate from what we have decided is a legal drug source. I don't know. I think in the past, all those, everyone that was put in jail, incarcerated, these were illegal drugs. But that's what's so hypocritical about this now. Now, this one came out as a legal drug. I mean, that's what seriously so fascinating. It's like, how is this illegal? It's a fucking drug. It's the same.
I know that if you get caught selling weed right now, right, without the proper licenses that you need to actually dispense weed legally, you still are subject to the same imprisonment that, again, all the people that are sitting in prison right now for weed charges are doing. If you were selling that same OxyContin, again, you would be treated much differently than someone who's dealing with weed, which again is a legal substance. That's my problem, Nichoel. I cannot get away from it. I cannot get off of it. And really what the real issue is, Nichoel, is it is reflective of America. It is reflective of the society we live in, whether it's the COVID thing, right? I still am dumbfounded that in the beginning of COVID, or I'm sorry, the beginning of the vaccine era, how rich, white, healthy people were jumping in line to get that vaccine before everybody else. They know it. They know who did it. They know how they did it.
They still do. They're showing young white people getting boosters before countries even got it.
Who's going to jail?
Nobody. Right.
So my problem again is the system. We're talking about OxyContin and we're talking about opioids right now. And we're kind of talking about COVID a little bit. But Nichoel, the problem is the system. There is 100%. A systemic, racist. You know what? Fuck the system.
No, buck the system.
Whatever you just said. I'm with you. Fuck it, buck it.
Yes.
Duck it. I don't care. It's despicable. It's despicable.
I mean, I think we see it the same way. Obviously, we come from different backgrounds, and so you have feelings a different way than I do. But I think in the end, it goes to whether someone at the top is racist or what. In the end, it goes to really the people at the top being corrupt, being power hungry, being hypocritical, doing whatever they can to stay at the top and have the power and have all the money. And if that means, segregating people, discriminating against people, whatever. So yeah, can there be, to me, I feel like, racism is a problem, but that's not even the main issue. It's these people that think that they can do any of these things, whatever it is, divide the people, make different rules for different people. It's again, it gets back to the whole thing where I was saying, we want to divide ourselves so much, whether it's by race or by Democrat, Republican, or we want to, amongst the people, we insist on dividing ourselves so much that it's so much easier for them to just run around and keep us divided and keep us running around with our heads cut off when they're running the show.
So I personally, speaking for myself, don't want to divide anyone. I want to highlight the divisions and disparities so that we can all be treated the same way. I want to go to jail for the same amount of time that you go to jail for the same crime.
I don't want to go to jail. I don't want to go to jail.
I don't want to go to jail either. But if you go to jail for doing something and I do that same thing, I want the same time you got.
I'm going to tell you something. You will probably get less time than me right now because you have way more money and you will get a much better lawyer. I'm going to have to use their assistant DA, whatever they give me. I'm probably just going to get you're going to do
you're
better
out of your mind because I would probably have to start selling OxyContin to pay for a lawyer. Okay.
But apparently they'll let you because, you need to pay for it. So,
but I can't. That's my whole point. I don't have the money. I don't have the money. The bottom line here, Nichoel, is this country is going to have to reckon with how it's treating its what's the right word I want to use? Its lesser population. And I'm not talking about Black people, I'm not talking about Mexicans, I'm not talking about whites. I'm talking about all of us, because all of us really exist in this 97 percentile of people who don't really have any sort of influence, money, or anything else. I thought it was very interesting that in the documentary, I don't know if you actually saw this part, they actually listed the Congress people that fought the hardest to essentially protect the pharmaceutical company, Purdue, but any pharmaceutical company, okay? But here's the thing, they listed the Congress people and they listed the contributions that the pharmaceutical companies had given each one of them. And guess what? Their amount of passion to protect the pharmaceutical company had a direct correlation with how much they were given.
Of course.
That's America, right? So forgetting Black,
money,
forgetting white,
money, again, it's money.
Exactly. But the problem with all of this is
that historically, because of the history that we come from, where Blacks came from, where the fact that 200 years ago, it was slavery. They came from nothing. Look at where the Black culture has come and how fast, honestly, after being held down for so long, not kidding, right?
Slavery ended legally in 1865, I believe.
200, yeah, not even 200 years ago, right?
Do you realize that there were still slaves being kept up until like the 1940s and 50s?
This is what I'm saying though, but so let me finish my point. Okay. Is that through all of, in the 60s, there was still segregation. There's still shit now, right? But the fact that I don't think you can any longer say Blacks are undereducated, are as an entire population, are make less.
Education is equal in Black and white communities. Nichoel, yeah. You and I, we're gonna have to have some.
Okay, can I finish my point and then we'll talk about that? Okay. My point is that all of the fact that maybe there's Black, Latino, it's young boys, white, Black, Latino, but probably a lot more Black or Latino or Asian or whatever in jails. I truly think a lot of it has to do with the fact that they're young, they have no money, they're probably rude, disrespectful in court if these are gang people in LA or whatever. Like it's Is there racism? Yes. But I think that if we think our entire population is because of that, or everything that we think is because of, I don't think so. I don't think that all of it is that. I think it's honestly, to me, it comes from greed and money. It comes from people at the top having the power to do whatever the fuck they want. And the people who have the least amount are the ones that are going to get the most affected. Right. And so if these populations are more poor or have lesser education, or right, they are going to get overly affected, not because of racism, because they can, whoever the fuck at the top can, right? That's
even if your supposition is correct, the thing that you're not equating into your formula is the reason why they remain poor or less affluent is because of race. The conditions that keep them less educated, less able to afford the certain luxuries in this society is because of race. That's why you cannot discount race. And again, the fact that I think you said, and you can clarify if I heard wrong, you think that the education is the same for Blacks, Latinos, whites, and Asians. You haven't done much study on that.
In middle America, I mean, I live in LA. It's probably white is a minority here. In middle America, are we not equal at this point? I mean,
not I don't even know. A little bit. The education system, because we have to keep it at public schools, right? Private schools do their own thing. You need to really take a look at the public school system, and you just pick a place. I don't care where it is. Mm-hmm. If it's a predominantly white community, the education and resources are going to be much greater and better than they will in the nearest Black, Latino, non-white community. It's not even close. And yes, we live in LA, and I don't know exactly what the numbers are in LA, but certainly if you look at the public school system in any white community versus a Black community, hell, Pasadena, California has the highest cost of move-in for renters anywhere in the country, okay? Anywhere in the country, Pasadena has the highest cost. Pasadena is a very affluent area. Pasadena also has a large contingent of Blacks, Latinos, non-whites, which basically comprises the public school system. Most whites take their kids out and put them in the private schools, in that can afford it, put them in the private schools in the Pasadena community. Take a look at the public school numbers in terms of education, grades, resources. Just look at Pasadena versus neighboring cities, literally neighboring cities, San Marino, La Cañada, Arcadia, where I live. Mm-hmm. We went to get our kids waivers to get them out of the Arcadia school system so we could keep them in Pasadena. The people at the office where we went to get the waivers literally looked at Esther and I like we were out of our minds. How in the world could you be taking your kids? Because literally people spend their last dime to get into Arcadia so that they can put their kids into the Arcadia school system. They had to blow dust off the paperwork that they gave us to sign to get our kids in Pasadena. Pasadena's affluent. It has money, and the public school system is exponentially worse than any community around it, literally any community right around it. And that is solely because Pasadena has a large contingent of Blacks and Latinos. So it's not even, again, it's not even money. Yes, money is a factor, but typically the economics of it trickle down from the real issue, which is the race issue. If there was no racism in this country, if this country was just, let's say we still had, we were still the same in every other way except there wasn't racism, right? Do you realize how different this country would look? And I'm not just talking about like people loving each other. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about literally looking at education, the prison system, colleges, jobs. I mean, Nichoel, it goes on and on and on and on and on. I mean, housing, they literally still show in 2021, the disparity in Blacks being able to get home loans real estate agents literally not showing minorities certain houses in certain neighborhoods that they actually can afford, but will only push certain houses in other neighborhoods to sort of keep things, divided. Racism, Nichoel, is honest to God at the root of probably most of America's problems. And by the way, America's wealth was built on racism. This country got its start because of slavery. When you have 200 or 300 years of free labor, you can do some things, okay? And so that's why America was even where it was on the world stage. We are every day losing our place on that world stage, but we're still pretty much at the pinnacle of where countries would like to be in terms of economics. You have to really start taking, in my opinion, you have to really start taking a look at just how profound racism and its effects have been and are on this country today, not yesteryear, today. It's amazing.
I don't doubt it. I'm sure that's the case. I want, like you, for it to not even be an issue, and especially in the jail system. I mean, it's just bullshit. Like, how can you legally, there's so much stuff that's bullshit now. Again, even just looking at all of this, this story of a Dopesick. I mean, how do you have a court system and a legal system that now says this drug is legal, but why wouldn't you go back then and now, what do you call it? Exonify? What do you say it when you now make them innocent? People that were put in jail for something that's no longer a crime.
Right. You exonerate them.
Yes. Why wouldn't that have been I mean, shouldn't that have been the first thing you do? Like, so yeah, like
let me throw a number at you, because I'm just so numbers driven. And I want you just to take this and do what you will with it. America is 4%, roughly 4% of the world's population, okay? 4% of the world's population houses more prisoners than any other country on earth.
I believe it. Well,
do you know what the prime composition of those prisoners is?
Not white.
Black men.
Yeah, I believe it.
And women, but mostly black men. We are 4% of the world's population, and we have more prisoners, literally, not per capita. We literally have more prisoners than any other country on earth. And those prisoners are majority Black. Blacks only comprise somewhere of between 12 and 13% of America's 4% of the world's population, yet we have more prisoners than any other country on earth. That in and of itself should tell anyone who's actually looking at this pie reasonably that America has a very serious problem with race. A very serious problem with race.
Well, and I also think that we just have a very serious problem with our systems in general, because like you said, we are losing our, and I think we easily could lose our number one status in the world. The way we're going,
we will.
The way we're going 100%. Like you said, jails make all our money, right? So this is a business for them. Everything's a business for them. We don't make any products, right? We make nothing. We make nothing because we don't have sweatshops, and China does. So we buy everything from them. So it's okay for them to have them and for us to buy them, but we can't have them and buy them from ourselves. So we make nothing. We create nothing. We have nothing. What we have are people who are very powerful, who are corrupt, who we have a massive government that we just fuel trillions of dollars into. And we have these systems behind it, like FBI and CIA and the government, that all interact together in ways that you and I will never know, to do some shady ass shit. But all of this, whether it's from racism or my thing with our whole health trash stuff that's going on right now, that it's all got to be fixed if we are intending to move forward and continue to stay as hopefully not a third world country that's owned by somebody else. It has to be fixed. I do have to say that for how many people we have in such a small space, and for all the problems that we have, I still say that we are doing relatively well. I mean, I would never want to go to someplace in the Middle East right now. I would never want, how would you like to be in Afghanistan right now? Like, I would say
I mean, that would be pointless to be in Afghanistan. I mean, there's nothing going there in terms of just quality of life, right? But there are definitely, so people like to espouse, America is the greatest place on earth. And
I don't think it's the greatest place on earth for sure.
America is really a nice place to be if you're white and if you're wealthy, right? So, and white being first, and I say that purposefully. If you're white, even if you're poor, there's still a higher quality of life than your poor counterparts. Now, if you are wealthy and not white or white, either one, then you definitely can have a high quality of life in America. But if you take that same wealth and you move to certain European countries, actually certain African countries, I think it's laughable how people tend to think that Africa is still this primitive place where people run around and their breasts hanging out and living in huts and all that kind of stuff. That's literally like a percentage of the population that's almost not even measurable anymore. They have thriving cities just like we do here in the West, and money speaks just like it does here in the West, and there's beautiful places. There are so many places on earth that you could live besides America and have a good life. People need to stop espousing that lie or misnomer that America is the greatest place to live, because guess what? When you say that and you really start to believe that, then you honestly don't really think that there's much to change. And there is much to change, a lot to change here in this place, so that it can be the greatest place on earth to live. I often, and it's been 5-6 years now since the advent of Donald Trump. I've always wanted to ask, and I wanted to ask this before I even heard anyone else say it. I've now heard people at least say it, but I've never gotten an answer or even heard an answer, and I've especially never heard an answer from Trump. I want to know, when was America great? I know when it was great for him and people that look like him, but when was America ever great for me? Now, why am I saying that? Because if you really care to make America this great place, right? Make America great again, then that has to include the entirety of society. That cannot just be white men and white women, right? Because I know when you say make America great again, and you're coming from the Trump and his people's perspective, what you're really saying is return America to the 50s and the 40s and the 30s and the 20s, and basically any time before civil rights took place in the 1960s. So I don't even know if you've ever heard this perspective before, but it is greatly offensive to someone like me to even hear or see those hats and all that kind of stuff. It's not because I hate Donald Trump. I actually used to like Donald Trump before he became president. Me and my wife used to watch The Apprentice. I actually thought he was an okay guy. I didn't know much about him. I stopped liking him because I heard some really nasty stuff about him. And then he decided to, what was it? Oh shoot, I can't even remember now. There's so many reasons to not like him now. What was it back then? Anyway, I know what it was. It was the birther thing, when he was talking about Obama not being born in America. That's when I gave up on him and stopped watching The Apprentice and all that kind of stuff. I really didn't even have a problem with Donald Trump, but I was highly offended at his whole mantra when he was wanting to get elected, make America great. Because for someone like me, Nichoel, and people that look like me and my children and my friends, you're literally telling us, take America to a time when you were essentially irrelevant. That's America. America has huge issues that it really needs to deal with maturely. America needs to grow up. It needs to grow up. I'm telling you. And that's coming from someone who really honestly loves everybody. I don't have a problem with anybody based on race. I have a problem based on just the kind of person that you are. If you're an asshole, then I have a problem with you. I don't care what color you are. And that includes a lot of Black people that I just don't like. A lot of white people that I just don't like. And none of it has to do with their race.
You should give everybody an update too, that you and your family.
There's not really an update to give.
Yes, there is. You all love each other. This is a good update. This is a good update.
No, that's not even close to
yes.
an accurate depiction of stuff. But anyway, back to the what the meat of this conversation. America has serious problems that America is going to have to deal with. And as long as America doesn't deal with them, America's going to continue to slide.
Well, yes, and America hasn't.
In our lifetime, by the way. This is not something that's generations away. We're going to look up, you and I, in not too long from now. And it won't be just theoretical. China will literally be the world's superpower.
Well,
they're already developing militarily. They're developing faster than we are in terms of technology and things that we don't even necessarily understand. They have hypersonic weapons now. We don't even come close to anything like that right now. And they have 1.5 billion people. So they have 4 times the amount of people there. So if you ever actually went to war with this country, you'd have a real problem just because you're outmanned and outgunned.
Well, now consider that what you're saying, because I agree that they don't need to have a war with us. They already own us. You know, this is maybe conspiracy theory, but why do you think that we still won't investigate, you know, Wuhan and all of it, right? Like, they already own us. And now look at how they run they're communists. Straight forward. That's it. They're communists.
You know that's actually not necessarily accurate. We want to investigate Wuhan and we want to know what happened there.
Oh, we do, but the people who need to don't.
Go pound sand. Yeah, you're not coming in here.
And we did.
So that's what makes everything that we're saying right now with regards to China so profound, because they literally are like, are you kidding? We're not letting you in here. Exactly. We don't have to let you in here.
And they won't. So yeah, again, I think what you've stumbled on is something that has been slowly happening over time, is that in maybe in our lifetime, maybe not, but if we don't fix our shit, we're just going to be China part 2. And that's what we're trying to do right now. We're trying to install communism, having these mandates, having these edicts, doing what the country says, censoring, banning, all of this shit that they're doing is exactly what happens in communist China. You can't talk bad about anybody. You can't do anything. That's what's happening here. And by the way, when all of it happens, there won't be any more racism. Nobody will care what color you are, because all will just be servants. Everybody will be. We'll all be on the same level. There will be no racism. We'll be the same level. We'll all be servants. And that's where we're going. And that's, to me, why I understand how massive racism is for you and how it's affected your family. I just feel like it's allowing, it's allowing that thought is keeping us from what's going to really keep us divided. China's already here.
Divisions, Nichoel, it's those divisions that are real divisions that keep us divided, which don't allow us to flourish in the way that we could flourish as a country. That's the problem. You have all these crabs at the bottom of the barrel that literally are trying to climb over each other to get out of the bucket. But the real thing is there is no getting out, because the people in the top 2 or 3%, that upper echelon, have a lid on the bucket.
That's not true. Again, you know what I think about that is it's with all of us in the bucket, we can all push it out if we work together. Again, you know what I think about that. But that's the thing.
If we were to work together.
That's the thing, though, is if we stop being so divided amongst ourselves and we work together and realize we're not the issue. The people running the show, and think about communism. So you think about China and communism, right? Communism is considered where everybody is equal and everybody has the same. But think about it. Are they? I mean, everybody's sure they probably have a good enough life and they have enough to live, but they can't do what they want. They can't say but the people at the top are the richest people in the world. Billions. People who run. That's how communism works. That's what we're trying to do here. So it's
well, actually, I mean, not to get too far off into it, but China, Russia, these countries are actually hybrids now. They're not the communism of the 50s, 40s, 30s, 20s, right? It's now an actual capitalism / communism, or communism / capitalism. That's why you have these excessive billionaires and these oligarchs in these countries now, because a certain percentage of the population was allowed to actually flourish economically. But China, the bottom 90% of China is super poor. Not just poor,
but they're all equal. I bet there's no racism there. They're all equal.
Because there's one race. But I mean, that's now we're just talking about political ideologies
but
and
that's what I'm saying, because that's what I'm saying. That's where it's going, is that in the end, if we don't realize that as a people, like you and me, never once in our life has there ever been an issue with race. Look at how you have flourished in your lifetime. I understand that there are people that are poor and that have less, and that their color can hold them back. And I think it's trash that people will do that to somebody. But if that issue keeps us divided forever, we will not clearly see the issue that's coming, which will actually just make us all slaves again. All of us, doesn't matter what color, we'll be equal. It doesn't matter what color we are. We're all going to be slaves. Like, that's what I'm saying. That's to me, it's the people at the top. And we say, well, what can we do? These guys run the world. These guys have all the money, and we can realize it and wake up, because the minute we are all together and say, no, they can't do shit. But as long as we stay divided between whatever the issue is today, it's very easy then for us to be controlled. Very easy.
So let's just quickly look at something that can touch both major topics right now: racism and COVID. That's what we're talking about. Okay. Now, I happen to know that you are an extreme fan of Kyrie Irving. Okay.
I have recently become
you have recently become Kyrie Irving. Of Kyrie Irving. You are
I don't know anything about basketball, but I have recently become a fan of.
But
Kyrie
you are
Irving.
a fan of Kyrie Irving. Okay, so you can relate to what I'm about to.
Oh, you're going to talk about flat Earth or something? No.
Oh, okay. Lord, no. This episode would be so long. Listen, Aaron Rodgers, who I love, I'm a fan, right?
I'm recently a fan of his as well.
I'm sure that you are. The topic here is not who's Nichoel a fan of.
Oh, that's not it? Okay.
No,
okay.
Not at all.
Okay.
We just need to talk about, look at how Aaron Rodgers is being treated versus how Kyrie was being treated, right? So they are both wealthy, right? So now all things are equal. They're both extremely wealthy, extremely famous, both have the same profession, professional sports, both highly endorsed individuals, right? Taking essentially the same stance on this COVID pandemic and vaccines and so forth. Aaron Rodgers is basically like, dude, we can't believe you lied to us. Oh my God, basically apologize. Kyrie was excoriated. And by the way, in all fairness to you and white people, Kyrie was excoriated by famous Black people as well. Those same famous Black people that I listen to, these analysts on ESPN and other sports programs, they don't give Aaron Rodgers the same energy and
Black people are racist then, or what? Like, so that's what I'm saying.
No,
like, what is
what
this
I'm
showing?
What I'm saying is, but they also know that they have jobs that they don't want to lose, and they don't want to offend their audience, and they don't want to offend the powers that be. So I'm not even necessarily talking about the racism of people dealing with Aaron Rodgers and Kyrie Irving. I'm talking about, let's just look at the disparity and how these two are being treated in the same exact scenario. Aaron Rodgers will be playing on Sunday. Kyrie Irving will not be playing. Kyrie Irving will still be being talked about like he is a total buffoon. And that's the way they talk about him, by the way, in all of these circles.
Who's
Aaron
they?
Rodgers
I don't know, like I don't watch this, so who's they?
Exactly. So it wouldn't even matter who I told you, because you wouldn't know them anyway. Okay. Let's just for the sake of argument, just trust me that I'm talking about famous people in sports and not even in sports, just regular news analysts.
Well, you have to be careful though, honestly, Mike, because again, I don't know who they are, because again, I get all my news from Twitter, which is from multiple different sources everywhere. So I'm not watching a news thing. Honestly, whenever I see a news thing, even on Twitter, like half the time it makes me sick.
Nichoel,
the way
I'm
these people
about
talk.
So many different outlets and so many different sources. This is not one.
I want to talk about this. So a new governor was just elected in Virginia.
Right.
His lieutenant governor is Black. She's amazing. I love her. I follow her on Twitter. She's an amazing person. You should have seen her speech. I loved it. On Joy Reid show, which I don't watch this either, but I see her on Twitter. A Black man came on who was apparently intellectual and somebody great. This Black man came on and no shit said that this lieutenant governor was basically a white face acting like a white woman. Mike,
I don't
again,
necessarily disagree with him. I'm very familiar with her. But go ahead, finish your point.
Okay, so how do you say that and at the same time say that this is right? You know, like I can't get on board with it. Like, you're saying yourself that Black commentators are treating him terribly, and then at the same time saying that somehow this is racism. Like,
you think that racism and the mistreatment of Blacks, Latinos, non-white people stops with white people? No, Nicole, it's that's what
so
I'm
now
saying.
You're saying Black people being racist is still racist.
Do you know that when I was a younger man and I'd be out in the streets and in my car as a younger person with my friends going to clubs and parties and all this stuff that young people do, I was always more afraid of Black police officers than I was white. You know why? Because Black cops would always want to show out for the white ones. They wanted to show you how hard they were to their white counterparts. If you think that I'm sitting here telling you that Blacks can't be despicable to Blacks, or Mexicans can't be despicable to Mexicans, or whites can't be despicable to whites,
everybody can be despicable to everybody. But that's what I'm saying. Is
but my point is, it's systemic. These are all symptoms of a systemic issue that's plaguing society.
Yeah, but I again,
racism
I just think
can be perpetuated from anyone.
Choices and do stupid shit, and because some person doesn't like some person of a different color doesn't mean that the world is racist. It means that this person's a piece of shit. And if we let that continue because of what that person says or what these guys do, like continue to divide us, that we'll never ever get past it, right? Like you're saying that the world is racist, but you were more scared of Black cops because they acted like white. Like, when does this ever end? When do we ever stop from whatever color we are?
It ends when the people in power decide to make real change. And by the way, it's been done in other countries. So it's not even like it would be unprecedented. Look at countries like Germany. Yeah, they still have some neo-Nazi factions and all that kind of stuff.
They have their own problems. Yeah.
They everyone has their own problems. It's humanity, it's the world, it's not perfect. There's always gonna be problems. But what I'm just saying is there is precedent for societies atoning for racial issues. America is not one of them. Mm-hmm. And when America becomes one of them, I promise you, America will look like a much better and stronger country.
Aren't we still paying reparations to Native? I mean, I think
reparations.
We do.
You think Native Americans have gotten reparations?
They've got casinos where they don't play tax.
They were allowed to put casinos on their land that they were forced to be on,
and
that's a reparation.
They don't pay any taxes on them. That's a reparation. That's a big reparation.
They
make millions of dollars off of those casinos where they pay zero taxes.
Tax situations for Native Americans, there have never been. They won't even have discussions about reparations for Black people in America. They won't even discuss it in the places that actually matter, like Congress, the Senate. I'm happy that if you're correct, I'd have to look that up. But if you're correct and Native Americans don't pay any taxes, they shouldn't have to pay taxes. This was their damn country in the first place. They were forced to live in the places they live right now, which were considered the shittiest parts of America. What does that mean? So they damn near wiped out a population and then said, okay, 200 years later, you can put a casino up. Oh, and you know what? Because we fucked you over for so many years, you don't have to pay taxes. Look at the amount of COVID being spread on Indian reservations. Look at the medical conditions on Indian reservations. Look at the education on Indian reservations. They are the only population that has lower numbers in all of these categories. Well, and by lower, I mean more negative.
Here you go. Here's Blacks. Another system. So again, here's another system. So look at those numbers on the reservations, while at the same time, the casinos of their same people are making hundreds of millions of dollars with paying no taxes. Why isn't that system supporting their own people? So again, Mike,
they're Americans. Why does that system need to support? No. Hold on. What, they are Americans, are they not? Why should they have to have their profitable industries support their communities?
Isn't that what you're asking for the government to do for everybody? Reparations and pay for everybody?
When have I said anything about the American government supporting the population? I'm not saying.
Didn't you just say reparations or whatever?
No, you brought up reparations. I'm telling you that there's never been discussions about reparations with regards to the people that they took free labor from for hundreds of years. Mm-hmm. Jews have gotten reparations. Japanese Americans who were in internment camps in the 40s when we were in World War II have gotten reparations. You're now stating that Indians have gotten reparations. Mm-hmm. Blacks are the only group of people in this country, the 12% that built this country, mm-hmm. literally, mm-hmm. who have not gotten reparations. And again, I don't want to, if anyone ever talks to me about welfare or any of these entitlement programs, and I've heard this before, that is reparations, I literally will just dive on that person because that's just about the dumbest shit I've ever heard in my life. Because if it was really just for blacks, then just give it to blacks, because the overwhelming percentage of people who use welfare in America are white. The overwhelming percentage of people who use welfare are white. So don't give me the bullshit about that. We have never, ever, ever had a discussion about reparations for black people in this country. A legitimate discussion.
Do you want reparations?
I absolutely want reparations, but reparations in my mind don't have to come in the form of checks to black people. I would love to see educational infrastructure, historically black colleges.
Don't we have that?
What was that?
Don't we have that? Historically black colleges?
I'm saying building up the historically black colleges, repairing the actual infrastructure of historically black colleges, repairing the educational infrastructure of public high schools, junior highs, elementary school, kindergartens in black neighborhoods. Reparations can be done in such a way that literally gives blacks a much better start than they're getting right now. So does it need to necessarily come in checks? Every black person in America gets $10,000. I would much rather not get the $10,000 and change the system, change the judiciary system, change the educational system, change the economic system, loaning small business loans, housing, real estate. That's the kind of stuff that I would like to see improved. So yes, I would like reparations, but again, it's a much more complex undertaking than maybe you are asking. Because no, I don't necessarily just want to see everybody in America get $100,000. Because guess what? Once you get that $100,000 and that's spent, unless you were wise and invested it. But if let's say that's spent, America is still America. I'm saying change America, Nichoel. That's what I'm saying. Change America.
Well, that's what we're trying to do in our little podcast here, one day at a time.
You got my blood flowing today, man. I was all Superman out. I was Clark Kent, now freaking Superman.
Yeah, who are you now? You're Lex Luthor now. Jesus Christ, man! You put a different shirt on. Man, you need to relax.
You know what? I almost ended our friendship 10 minutes ago. I was like, we can't be friends anymore. I'm done. I'm just kidding. I love you.
That's what love is about. You can have, and that's why we do this podcast, and what we need for the reparations the world needs is to understand that you can have different viewpoints and you can come from different places and you can still work through it and come together, even if you don't believe the same thing.
Man. And we need some more listeners, because days like today, America could benefit from this conversation. I know I'm giving out pearls. I mean, you definitely you give out a couple pearls here and there.
Thank you. Thank you.
Giving your due.
Thank you. Thank you. You're giving me my due. Thank you.
I'm giving out grandma's pearls here. I'm giving out just meat for society. And I honestly feel like I just want to yell out this window, like, wake up, America. Like, come on, highly uncircumcised, because
wake up.
Where else are you gonna get what I'm dishing out right here? This is worth money, man. I almost feel like not publishing this. This is like,
you gotta save this.
Seminar type stuff.
Secret video.
Yeah, we need to rent a hotel space and just like give a seminar or something. This shouldn't be free YouTube info.
Listen, we went for like
to watch this.
We need a secret code. You can only watch us on the secret code.
1, 2, 3, 4. That's the code.
We went deep today. We started talking about Dopesick, and we can end it on that. But it went so deep because any issues that we see within society are systemic, and what we're coming to learn more and more, and like I always say, COVID really brought it to light. COVID really allowed me to wake up, is to see that system that we are in. And And as long as the people in the system still can live a good life and do whatever they want, we don't care. But it's when you start to see it and realize it is impacting your choices or your right. And so you've lived in the system of racism your entire life that truly heats you up, right? Obviously. This COVID system really just helped me see the system of in our entire life. It's hiding under our health institutions, but that's not it. It's our entire government, leading institutions, everything from the top down. There's a lot that needs to be overhauled. There's a lot that needs to be redone. And it can be when we start to wake up and realize it and then start working towards change. But if we don't have these conversations, nothing ever will change, right? Like it will only get worse.
And the funny thing is that I feel like the simplest of change would make the greatest difference, especially when you're talking about like the COVID thing and how that's being handled and all that. Like literally, if politicians were no longer allowed to accept money from
campaign finance reform
from anybody, literally from
nobody.
Anybody. I'm talking about from you giving $2 to me giving $2. If they were not allowed to accept any money, you know what that would absolutely do? It would put people in there who actually cared about doing something significant for the whole of society. And whether you agreed with them or not ideologically, probably all of us would agree that that person at least believes in whatever they're espousing. And I don't even care what they're espousing, but at least I would know they believe in it. Right now, people espouse stuff they don't even hardly believe in just because they have, they're beholden to some entity like Purdue Pharma. We know we could absolutely change politics if we just change the economic infrastructure of how politicians get and stay in office.
Well, the problem is they have to vote on those changes and they don't have any incentive to vote on that. We have to force that, right?
Exactly. Why do people think about it? Why do men and women who literally could be worth 5, 10, 15, 20, $100 million get so excited about winning election to a job that pays them $150,000 a year?
We know, you know why.
Answer that question for
you
me.
know, you want me to answer it for you?
Please do.
Yeah, because all of the incentives on the side.
Exactly, because all the incentives are worth more than their net worth.
And there's something to be said about power as well, because you wonder why, you know, somebody like Trump, who already had a lot of money, would really want to do it's the idea of being in power as well. There's money and power go hand in hand, I think, and it's a place that these people aspire to be, and that is one way of them getting it. Our government shouldn't be that way. It's not meant, I mean, ideally it's not meant to be that way. You're meant to be a public servant, not somebody who deems out edicts for your people. You're meant to listen to what your people want and then make it happen. Our government system has just been allowed to be so corrupted. But this reminded me of another election that was won by, did you see this guy in New Jersey? He's a truck driver. He literally spent like $200 on his campaign. He has a motorcycle. He made like one YouTube video and he won. And I was like, this kind of grassroots stuff is, you know, the working class person. Like, I still say this is why Trump was elected, is because we're tired of this shit. He sold himself very well as not a politician. And even though you and I can see like, well, you're still in there hobnobbing with politicians, dude, like really? But that's what people want. They don't want a politician. They're tired of this shit. They're tired of the corruption, of the fraud, people just getting in there and taking money for themselves and not working for their constituents. And so they want an average working person who wants to get in there and make change. And that's what, you know, this guy won. And that's what we need through the whole system, which is going to be hard, but we can do it.
Well, I couldn't disagree with you more about why Trump got into office, but, you know,
that's what I think.
Honestly. I've already, you know, bloviated enough.
Yeah, let's not go about Trump anymore. Oh my God. Okay, so
if there wouldn't
anyways,
have been a Barack Obama, there wouldn't have been a Donald Trump. I'll just put it like that.
Oh no, are we gonna go back into racism again? I can't. We have to save it for next time. Okay. No,
next time I want to talk about butterflies and ladybugs.
Okay.
What's your favorite caterpillar? You're
next time we're gonna tell jokes.
You're raising my blood pressure. I mean, Superman doesn't even typically have high blood pressure. You know.
So at any rate, to wind it down, definitely watch Dopesick. Definitely see if you see the parallels. I see so many. I truly do. But again,
watch Dopesick, yes, but I would say watch the documentary on HBO if you have the ability to watch it, even more so than Dopesick, because again, Dopesick is a drama, right? The documentary is just facts. It's real happening. So
I'm gonna go watch the second one right now. So, and Dopesick episode comes out tonight. So I'm gonna watch that tonight too as well. So never watched so much.
I'm gonna go
TV.
watch Denzel Washington and Malcolm X.
Oh, really? You're going hard. You're going hard in the racism paint.
You know what? I'm coming to your house as soon as we end this thing. Something I want to tell you.
All right. Well, I love you. And this was a very good conversation. And I don't know what we're talking about next week, but it's going to be maybe
fire. Whatever it is going to be fire.
Maybe a few more jokes thrown in.
Let's just play Dave Chappelle's the closer for
the whole time.
That's just the whole thing. Just the whole thing.
No copyright problems.
Not at all. We'll just at the very end we'll say we'll see you next week.
All right. Come back here. Maybe we'll do that. All right. We'll see you guys next week. Bye.
Bye.